Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the Gearbox Theater. Thank you guys for coming. Man, it's awesome that it's like people are standing in the back. That is kind of really cool.
We're really happy you're uncomfortable standing right now.
It would be cooler if you had a seat. I apologize, but it's cool seeing interest, is what I'm saying. So yeah, thank you guys for coming up. This is our Battleborn Fireside Chat panel. We have a bunch of very incredibly cool people here. Just to really quickly go down the road, this is Randy Varnell, the creative director. Aaron Lindy, lead writer. Brian Thomas, a senior character designer, was it? Lead character designer, excuse me.
Brian Thomas.
Chris Brock, producer.
Yeah!
Scott Kester, art director.
Woo!
I feel that way about Kester too. And Amanda Christensen, concept artist.
Right.
So what's cool about this panel is, these guys are just going to talk to you directly and have some breathing room, because we love talking about Battleborn in the main theater panel, but it's a lot to cram in when there's much other things to talk about. So today they're just going to kind of explain everything about the game. So I'm going to shut up. I will pass the mic to Varnell, and here you go.
So the first mistake they made is they gave me a laser pointer, so if I blind someone during the presentation, it's not Gearbox's fault. Don't sue us. Second of all, look, as Andrew said, we're ridiculously excited to be here. Battleborn, brand new IP from Gearbox, brand new game, a lot of exciting things. You guys have heard a little bit about it, right? Yeah. How many of you guys have checked out the video in the community area next door? Have you seen that video online? Sweet. Well, we want to walk through a kind of a sampling of all the content and give you a little idea of what Battleborn is going to be about today. Everybody's going to get a chance to talk, even if Lindy has to hit me over the head with the microphone and make me shut up, because sometimes I talk too long. But
No, yeah, I may do that just for fun, even if you're not doing it.
All right, cool. Battleborn, when we got to the end of Borderlands 2, and we're looking at all the stuff that we loved in Borderlands 2. We love characters, we love co-op gameplay, we like a lot of guns, we like a lot of ways for you to customize your character and a lot of different things to play. Like, man, wouldn't it be cool if we kind of took that promise and did sort of what we did with guns and Borderlands with characters, and went even further on what we can do. Borderlands, I think up until Claptrap, they were all like two-armed, two-legged, guys and girls that carried guns and went around. Claptrap kind of started to mix that up. But Battleborn, it gives us a brand new universe to explore, to go even further than that, to move out of kind of humanoid into strange and different beings with different abilities. And so we wanted to do a game that had a lot of different things that were close to our hearts and near and dear to us. But we knew we wanted to do a game that mixed in some competitive back in, along with the great cooperative that we had in Borderlands. So when we did that, we were looking for reasons to fight. Why do people fight? Why does conflict happen? In Borderlands 2, you had Handsome Jack, that great villain that was really messing with our Vault Hunters on Borderlands 1, and we give you a lot of motivation from the beginning of the game to want to pick up a gun and take the fight to him. In Battleborn, we started with story, and we started thinking about the idea. Linda, you want to talk a little bit about what's going on with the story of Battleborn?
Yeah, sure. This thing? Yes, this thing. Hi. So how many of you guys came to the Inside Gearbox panel? Is that like... Okay, actually, wait, this is a more precise question. How many people weren't able to make it? Raise a hand. Okay, great. This part is for you, because I'm going to restate what I said at that panel. As Randy mentioned, we're leading with characters. Characters is that's what we're passionate about with this game, and that's what we want to do. And we were like, in terms of crafting a universe that supported that, we were looking into scenarios in which we could have a really eclectic mix of characters that would all have a reason to. That we could all just get them funneled into the same place. That we could have a space that could have characters as wacky as we'd want them to be, or as interesting as we want them to be, or as out there, or as disparate. Just an insane pastiche, and we'll be talking a lot about more characters.
Well, and really high stakes, too. I mean, Borderlands, you've got Handsome Jack, a great villain, head of a corporation, all that, but we wanted to see if we could go higher with the stakes, right?
Yeah, because, we figured that, because we're all fans of the whole big question of the sci-fi thing, and this predated coming to Gearbox, but the minute that I was told about it, I think I've told the story before, it was in my interview that it was explained to me that the whole focus of this game is it's the very, very distant future in which there is only one star left burning, and that's Solus. And all of the characters in our game, all the factions and all of that have pooled around this one star and are vying for, supremacy and control of the star. I'm a huge dork, so, a huge sci-fi nerd. I watch Cosmos like every other day, basically. So when that was told to me, I lost my mind. I was just like, that sounds amazing. And that's just been, and it's been basically that way ever since. Like all of these really cool high concept stuff, the really high stakes, because there really isn't there's no place left to go in this universe. We live in a universe right now that is bright and glittering and full of billions upon billions of stars, but there is a very real day, like physics tells us, there's a very real day in the future where there will be just one, and then there will be none. And our universe is not eternal, it's not infinite. There will be a day when it'll be dark, and we're as close to that day as we possibly can be. So when we say the stakes are as high as they could be, it's because this story only ends once, and from that point on, it's forever. But the crazy thing is we still have characters that, like Montana, that are, will make the jokes that they make, because those stakes are so high, because that's the only way you can really kind of, wrap your head around a scenario like that. I imagine that's the only way you could cope. Like if every day you woke up and just thought, the world's gonna end forever and that's gonna suck, then you would probably tell a lot of really dumb jokes, which you'll get to hear.
So the cool thing about the story is you get to explore the idea of, if there's only one, what happens to the heroes in that? Obviously, we talk about the factions and the characters. Our factions kind of align around, our characters kind of align around causes. We've got 5 factions in the game that kind of have different themes to them. Kester will get into, and others, about kind of the art themes and the style themes on that. But just philosophically, they have different ideals. Some wanna just enjoy the ride to the end. Some wanna get to the fight and see, is there a way we can save this star? Can we do that? Some are very self-serving, just mining the asteroids until it's all over and all that. So we have all these reasons of these characters to conflict, so that the characters really represent a lot of what we do in the story, and we've got some cool ideas of how to make characters even a couple of steps more vibrant than what we've done before, I think, at Gearbox, right?
Yeah, and as we said before, like this IP is like it's the license that we need to basically have carte blanche with whatever. I mean, like we're obviously very creatively liberated at Gearbox, but here we also have an IP that just supports like any kind of crazy stuff. So you guys are going to see some characters that. Like there are characters that we see like coming in from our concept artists that just blow our mind every single day, and it's awesome that we have a game that can contain all of them. And the factions that we have that support those characters. I mean, we have characters factions rather, that are unified around common philosophies, and some of them are like the Last Light Consortium, Marquee,
the LLC.
The LLC isn't that clever. You're going to see a little bit of Marquee later, but they're like an economic powerhouse, and even as the last stars in the universe are going dark, all they care about is making that money and staying on top of basically owning as many monocles as possible, that kind of stuff. And the cool thing is like we have factions that contain a variety of tropes from a ton of different kinds of media. Like if you're a fan of fantasy, you're going to like the Eldred. We have a lot of characters in the Eldred, which I refer to them somewhat euphemistically as our space elf faction, but they go way further than that. But a lot of those fantasy tropes that we find so compelling are in there. We've got the Generate, who are, in addition to being one of our playable factions, are also the principal antagonists of our universe, and they're kind of the I don't know, how would you describe them? You have a really good, I don't want to say space vampires.
Kester, I mean, what is the way, you were in some of the meetings where we were talking about the Generate there. Yeah, space vampires is probably not the right term. They're the, you look at like games like Warcraft that have the Horde, and we like to play those darker, the Star Wars that have the Sith and all that, and we were looking at kind of those influences, and we wanted that faction that's a little bit more Imperial, they're a little bit more on the edge. I mean, if you like Blades and Samurai and Warrior Caste and kind of the idea of
people taking themselves really seriously,
Well, I think to me too, I kind of like to play the anti-hero a lot of times. So, like sort of a dark, like who doesn't want to be Darth Vader, right? So it's kind of like this game is about like character promise, and you all don't want to be like a bright, shiny hero, probably. I mean, maybe you do, but there's the guy next to you that wants to be something else, right? So one of the key things with this was, and this is something we say a lot, and Amanda had said it this morning even, that every one of these characters is the hero of another game that hasn't come out yet, and in that means that there are anti-heroes, and we love Wolverine because of his on-off attitude, of course. So it's just, I think for me, actually, talking about the Generate, that faction in general is really close to me, and that's kind of where I put a lot of my my emphasis on as well. So.
Yeah, in fact, one of my favorite characters, Wrath, right here, I think was the first character. We'll talk about him in a second. one of the first characters we designed, the melee swordsman there, is really defined a lot of look for the Degenerate. So we'll look at that in just a second. I've got another cool slide in a minute. Let's see. All right. So we talked a little bit about the characters and the story. There's a lot more to come. We don't want to spoil too much right now because there's a lot of exploration, discovery there that you guys will enjoy. But if you're wondering, we keep talking characters. The follow-up question is, well, what do they do, Randy? So let me tell you a little bit about what Battleborn has. I think of it in like 2 or 3 different parts. Certainly, we've mentioned the competitive part. It's 5v5 competitive. At least the first, we're going to have several modes, several different maps to play on. We've teased, if you look around the internet and look at what we talked about when we announced the game, there's a big Game Informer cover story from last July where we announced the game. We've already teased some of that and talked about that. You're going to hear a lot more in the months to come. But really, really great first-person shooter. I guess you still call it first-person shooter when you're with swords, right? You're not really shooting with swords, but a first-person action game. We call it a hero shooter, right? Heroes, shooters, and all that. With that great first-person play with a lot of different characters. We've got melee guys, we've got archers, we've got people with guns, we've got people that sling magic. Literally kind of a massive fantasy fulfillment and competitive. We also have this excellent cooperative game. Aaron talked a little bit about the story, and this is one of the places where you're going to get to explore what it's like to contend for the last star in the universe and the conflict that comes about that. You're going to be able to play. We showed 5-player missions. One of the demos that runs over there, we've got and you can find it on the internet. We showed last fall when we did a press tour. We talked about it. We show you an example of our early demo of cooperative play in that. So how many of you guys like cooperative play in Borderlands, right? And you saw the Handsome Collection now is 4 players, split screen and all that. Look, we love cooperative play at Gearbox, and we want to be sure that you guys can play together and take on new challenges. So you get to mix that with this really broad spectrum of characters. You've got this huge lumbering Montana on one side, and you can even add Wrath the Swordsman to your team. So if you want to be the lumbersexual minigun guy, you can do that if that's your fantasy.
That's Varnell's fantasy.
Right. That's my new word for the weekend. So I'm going to say that a lot, right?
Yeah.
Right. But there's a. Are you gonna?
He's very aroused on this panel with all these beards, actually.
This is our. By the way, this is our Gearbox diversity panel. We've got white guy with beard.
Feel the heat up here.
White guy with beard. White guy with beard.
It's brought a hat.
And then Amanda. Hey, Amanda.
Who, despite our best efforts, will not wear a beard to panels. We've been trying really hard. But,
Well, we've got some time left on the marketing promotion leg of that, so we'll get Amanda on a panel with the beard eventually. And Scott,
someday.
You've got some time to work on it, man.
I'll try.
All right. So multiplayer, cooperative, and competitive. One of the things we also loved about Borderlands, in Borderlands 2, I was design producer, worked on that. Also did a lot of work with the challenges. Any of you did some challenges and achievements in Borderlands? I had a lot of fun with that, and we really like to kind of measure ourselves. We wanted to go even steps further with Battleborn. So one of the things we'll talk about in the coming months is what we're doing with kind of all of that part of the game, how you collect, how you grow. We've already talked about it. You've got kind of this commander level, this meta level that you grow along independently of all the Battleborn. So a lot of different ways to grow and expand and things to do with the game and ways to measure yourself against your friends. Much more to talk about that later, but really excited stuff there. So that's just a taste of the gameplay. More details on that soon. What we really wanted to do, again, our keyword has kind of been characters. I wanted to walk you through and let these guys especially, I want to shut up a second and let our artists walk you through what it's really like to make a Battleborn. I want to show you how much love goes into these characters and how much love we're trying to throw back to you at the fans with these. So we wanted to walk through one of my favorite. This is Marquis. His full name is Marquis de Caliber. We initially called him our gentleman robot sniper. I don't know why. And it was really the character that kind of even defined the faction, the LLC, the monocle collecting kind of trade consortium there that we have in our universe right there. So we're going to walk you through kind of the process of making one of these guys. So this literally is the very first concept. We did a bunch of concept trying to imagine our universe at the beginning. And this was the very first concept that we did for Marquis. Scott, I want to turn it over to you and let you and Brian Thomas, our lead character designer, you guys want to kind of walk us through the process and talk about what was going on here?
When we started thinking about what kind of characters we wanted in this game, we wanted a broad appeal. We wanted to bring a lot of different players in from a lot of different things. So, like, how many of you play Smash Brothers, fighting games? MOBA games. Who plays League? Who plays Smite? Yeah. TF2. Yeah. there's this huge like awesome thing that's going on that is really about like not just playing the game but playing the experience that you want in that game. And when we started looking at this concept sheet, we started going, okay, well, like clearly this is sniper class. So what do we want out of sniper class from gameplay? Okay, we clearly need a sniper rifle. We need a couple other little skills here and there. So we start kind of looking at elements that we really liked about some of this. And Scott can talk about it, but like the owl on his shoulder and the timepiece on his watch. And we started thinking about all these little bits and how these can be skills and powers and weapons that you use. So in Borderlands, when you're using your action skill, and it's that really cool moment where you're Maya and you're phase locking somebody, or you're the Necromancer and you're putting your robot out, like that big moment where you feel that character's trope, like we want that all the time. We want that every time you use a weapon, every time you use a skill, we want you to feel that you're in that character. So with that challenge, it's up to Art to sort of,
Yeah, I think too, just to sort of even just talk about the look of this game. It was one that I have to have a hats off to Randy here and the partners for allowing me to sort of explore the route that we were going to. I also had the opportunity to design most of the Borderlands characters. So being able to like create those guys to sort of establish that I think I kind of know how to make a cool looking character. I thought I did at least. You guys confirmed it, thankfully, so thank you for that. Moving into that and this style that's this sort of weird mishmash of, we knew, as Randy and Brian had said, that there could be so many different kinds of like different body types, different critters, robots, etc. I wanted a style that could house all that wouldn't look too weird, because I wish I could go into depth with some of the things I could use as a reference for you, but I can't right now. But just the energy that we're trying to put in this game, and Brian mentioned fighting games. I mean, I'm probably sitting here because of Capcom fighting games, and I was so obsessed with those characters. So one of my mandates, to go back to what Brian just said, is every one of these skills somebody does. This is impossible, but I'm going to say this statement to you so you can at least see what we're trying to do. I wanted every single person's move to be as memorable as, like, say, Ryu's or Ryu, wherever part of the country you're from. You can whatever one you say there. So, like, his Fireball, his Dragon Punch, and his Tatsu, like, even if you don't play those games, you guys know what those moves are, and they're just the epitome of a special move. So our hope is that with every one of the moves that these characters do, there's this stickiness and there's this memory. So every time you launch it, you like it. And I mean, I could be in the minority, but I can watch like Ryu throw a fireball like all day. It never gets old to me because it's just iconic and it's just amazing. So we're trying to do that with all these guys. Mark, just to talk about Marquee in general, this actually was Randy. This was a sketch before I had even got on the projects. This was a concept artist of ours, and these guys were really in love with this drawing, and you guys might be too, but I actually wasn't. I thought it was a cop-out in a way, but then I was like, you know what? Steampunk is rad. People dig that, and like, what can we graft onto this? And one thing that's really rad, and like, I can kind of here and there interject with Amanda too, is this company allows us to, like, for instance, I think in those drawings, the artist, I mean, he just drew this like robotic owl, and I was obsessed with Clash of the Titans, so I was like, that's going in the game. Like, I don't know, like Bebo's gonna go in the game in the timepiece.
Bebo.
Sorry,
yeah.
Sorry.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I'll just leave. Harry Hamlin's next door. Okay.
Burn him.
No. So, and I think it was like, we a lot of times just off the flick of our wrist throw some weird thing in the drawing, and that ends up becoming part of gameplay. And BT and his team can just like all of a sudden they start rapping, like, I mean, like Amanda and I, like, we might just draw some thing that shouldn't really go in the game, and somebody sees it and is like, let's put that in the game. That's pretty rad. So it's kind of like, I mean, like, do you have anything to?
I mean, I can probably count on my hands the number of times that I've suggested something a little bit ridiculous and I've actually gotten a no. Like, most of the time, the reaction is just like, yeah, let's do that. Can we do that?
So when Kester got on, you saw the difference. I'll flip back and forth from the original concept, and he started thinking about style. And Kester, what I love about him is really thinks about silhouette. How does it look? What's the thing that adds its unique element? And went beyond that. So we kind of moved from that concept to something that puts Marquee in a pose. We're playing with the elements on him, exaggerating some features, his bowed legs and all that, which is kind of weird for a robot. But I then went further. we talked a little bit about our factions. Kester, you went through an effort where you really thought, what are the shared stylistic colors and elements through all our factions?
Yeah. I mean, and that's one of the things too. We knew we wanted these 5 distinct groups, and I wanted them to visually feel different. So not only could you tell what the person did when you looked at them, but you could tell where they came from. To me, the most important, the DNA of any game is actually in these little scribbles. That's everything in my eyes. Like, I don't really look at the surface yet. I'm looking at these shapes. If you've been around this weekend and Amanda or Kevin was drawing and I was talking over things, you might have heard me sort of spout some of that. But, you know, style is so much more than just like, you know, what the person's wearing. It's the way it moves. It's how they flow and the function of that. So, and that's another thing too, like from the look of these, you know, I really wanted to put something that somebody was going to remember. It wasn't going to just be this. It's another, like, to me, like, as I have a tendency to look at tons and tons of art. So sometimes when I see something that, man, I've seen that so many times before, it's like, how can we like remix that? And the thing too is a lot of this goes to Lindy, it goes to BT, it goes to the animators and the effects artists to really put a character to it. And it's not just a drawing; it's like the entirety of the thing.
So we did a sheet of these for each of our 5 factions, and we just kind of set a broad goal for our character concept artists like Amanda. You did a couple of these sheets. I don't know if you didn't do this one, did you?
I did some Protect and Rogue.
Right. You did the early Peacekeeper and the early Rogue stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we just did dozens and dozens and dozens of these little thumbnails, and then Scott brought them together and tied them together and found out thematic elements. And you can kind of see this. You know, Marquis was kind of one that had been kind of reimagined in this. You see some starting to reimagine his colors and the shared theming. And then we go a step further. So now that we've got those elements, you know, the dots, and we're mixing in the gold color, and you're mixing in the silver and all that, we kind of did an investigation. And this is, you know, you hear Scott say, I didn't like the original Marquis. So he actually wanted to test that out. And you commissioned some of this, and we did some exploration.
Well, my thing is, like, I always say make it weirder. I like to make people.
And that's how the owl in number 5.
I had never seen 5
I've actually
right
never
now.
seen this image until
That's
right
nightmare
now. That
fuel.
owl is what I'm going to see every time I close my eyes.
It's awful.
You're welcome.
Hello, Lindy.
If it was actually up to me, the little Jiminy Cricket looking thing is what I would probably put there. I mean, it is up to me, right? But it came down to what was perfect for the guy. So I have a tendency to sort of like push things a little too far, because then I can bring it back just a little bit and people are happy. if you start like kind of baseline and slightly go up, that's all the further you're gonna go. And I think, but I mean, that's what we've done through all of with Borderlands from 1 to 2. Like, as we've gone on, we've gotten a little crazier. We've just gone with it, and it felt right. And this is a game that I just, you know, we joke, you know, the old, you know, joke everybody says, a Spinal Tap up to 11. It's like, just keep pushing it, you know? Like, I'm sort of tired of seeing a lot of the same stuff personally, and I think our company is as well. And I just think that we want more out of it, and we think you guys deserve more too. And I think that, you know, to create these characters that are memorable, you have to go a little outside of what the norm is.
And when we're designing these things at the same time, it's been really liberating for us, because a lot of these details, like previous generations, like we couldn't afford it for whatever reason, bandwidth, memory, frame rate, and now we kind of can, and it's been great to be able to, like, this stuff doesn't have to die on the editing room floor anymore. We can go like, oh, Art's concepting this really awesome owl. Can we use the owl? Or like when we were seeing the pocket watch thing, you know, literally on the other side of the building, we're making the gameplay prototype at the same time, and we're like, he's got a slow attacks. All right, slow clock. He's got a clock on his thing. Like, can we rig this thing? Can we actually have him be able to pull this thing off? And again, like, those sort of details, you know, we may not have been able to do, but because of the next-gen consoles, because where PCs are now, you know, we're really able to afford the bone count and the rigging and the animation and the effects that go along with it, and say, like, no, like, let's keep going to that. Let's double down on that. Let's make that character's kit awesome, and spend the time and effort to polish it and make it good.
So you kind of saw the concept process getting to this point. This is actually the final concept that we had before Mark, you went into modeling. I say final if any of you have ever worked in an art team and worked on a character before and put one together. It's not the only final concept. This was you saw all the elements, but then we do more. Then we have to do all the details, because we have to know. The artists have to actually make sense. How do all these joints work? How does everything happen? How does it hook up? What are the parts? So we start imagining what the owl looks like, and then you got to go into his gun. His cane is a gun. He actually has a line. My cane is a gun. Ha ha ha! And he laughs at you on that. But This is really awesome. This is actually we modified it beyond this concept, but this shows you a little bit of the detail that we go in with our art and our effects and our modeling teams. The gun has this neat thing. So he used to walk around with the cane, and it was originally a sword. And like, well, let's go a little bit more shooter with that. So now his gun, his cane, when he has it kind of with the long end down, the handle is now a pistol. It's a revolver. So he comes out and shoots that, and then when you pull it up to snipe, he snaps the gun up. You see the little sniper scope. All of those actually model out in the world. So if you're watching him in third person, you're the character, and seeing that, the monocles. You said he collects a lot of monocles. There they all are. All snap up, and then you're looking through this great sniper scope, and he's doing that. So a really fun, inventive part. And it was through a lot of the direction of Scott and BT, working with our designing and our art department together.
The main point you're leaving out, though, that I'm most proud of is that his pinky's out because he's sipping tea. So.
It's the little details, yeah.
It's the little touches like that we hope people see and appreciate.
And as has been mentioned, as a lot of folks have said, like these characters go through constant evolution in every step of the pipeline, and and at least in terms of in terms of the characterization that I've been trying to do with voice, it's crazy how much how little features of characters can go so far in defining who that character is. Like for example, Montana, you guys have seen the really big super lumberjack guy. The first day I saw his running animation, it clarified the character for me because he has this kind of twinkle toes jump kind of thing, and he's huge. He's alarmingly huge.
14 feet tall.
Yeah, something like that. If you were to actually meter it out, it's ridiculous. But just to see him jump and to see his melee where he does this little flick thing, after that, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, I know exactly who this character is. I know exactly what sounds he's going to make, but which is not his melee effort is just doink, like that. So. And all that just every single step of the process, we find ourselves more and more informed, and that's as it goes through animation, as it goes through rigging, everything, and it's these characters really are the product of an insane amount of people. There is no real one person that can be.
Oh, I'll get to that in a second.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. In fact, Brock, once we finish all the concept, then we've got a lot of other stuff to do, right? We go to modeling. This was the first, what we call it. We do the high poly version, the just kind of the fully sculpted version of the guy on that. Brock Kester, you want to talk us through kind of this? I've got 2 or 3 steps to this process.
Yeah. This part too. I'm coming from a concept art background. I'm extremely I'll just say sometimes the concept artists can be a little bummed out if a character changes through, the modeling that was drawn this way and it changed. So we just really try to make sure that this is a group effort. It's all these people working on it. So. We go from the high poly, which, translates what's there. You can go to that next one. We go to the low because, we have to take the high res information from the, whatever. You guys don't want to know about all that. It takes a really long time, we'll say that. And then we go through a texture stage. And then you kind of see where he started, where we got him to, where he's at. This character had a pretty defined vision from the start, whereas some characters that we can share down the line went through vastly different. Is it a creature? Is it a robot? What sex is it? Does it have a sex? All those kind of things. So
literally when we're looking at our character grid, we're trying to be sure that we have a lot of different archetypes represented. We certainly did short, medium, and tall. Montana was our tall. Then Brian, I remember a meeting where you and I were in a year and a half ago. We're looking at that grid and we're like, okay, we need to be sure that we have male, female, and then we call it other and monstrous and
yeah, and it's been really fun because I think we did that accounting after we had a ton of characters kind of go into production. We're already on the hook. We're already making these things. It's been approved. Oh, we should probably actually go back and look and see whether we actually made some smart decisions here. And it was just really good because there's so much good vibes at the office that people really advocated for lots of different characters in a lot of different forms. So there's different shapes, different ethnicities, different sexes. There's monsters, creatures that don't feel humanoid at all. There's characters that feel very humanoid but aren't. And it was really cool that was just naturally sort of the upswell of where our minds went when we sort of had this goal to go out and pull all these random things from the universe and put them around one star. So that was really cool, accidental find in the middle of development.
So Brock, once we get it all modeled, this is not nearly the end of the character. There's a lot more that goes in that. You want to just really quick recap?
Yeah, sure. Before we go on to the next couple characters, the process that was just outlined to you guys takes a couple months to do just this art process here. That's not really including any pre-pitch for any of the design work. But once we have a cool character model like this, there's a lot more work to do. The things should probably move, so we need to rig it and animate it. Probably should have some good feedback, some cool effects, so the effects guys get a couple weeks with it. Audio, that takes a couple weeks to record all that sweet. And for some of these guys that are super weird, we have to actually go make new audio. We have to go do a lot of sound design. There's the voice casting process, which can take a while depending on how complicated a character is. You have to record that, get that in. It should probably be in different languages because we have fans everywhere. And all through this, design's working on it. And that spawns some code requests, like that owl, that thing's an AI, it's got to move. All told, it's about 100 man weeks per character. We got a lot of characters. So I just kind of want to get that across, just to show the sheer amount of love that's going into every single one of these things.
So to put it in perspective, do you guys, who knows how many characters were in the in Borderlands 2, including DLC, how many playable characters were there? 6, right? So we're going to show you a slide. We've announced 9 already for Battleborn. We're going to do more.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously we all love Borderlands, and I don't want to say anything, mean, but those didn't take 100 man weeks each.
Right. So listen. Well, I know you're going to hear the word character a lot. You're probably going to say, Randy, I'm tired of hearing the word character, but oh my gosh, there's so many and they're so cool. I think you guys are going to love it. So let's talk about another one. So Marquee was one where we had a lot of concept art and we looked at designing the character around. That's like, that's awesome picture. What does that do? When Brian and I were looking at that grid and trying to fill in holes, we're like, man, we need some characters that do some. One of the big promises for Battleborn was mixing melee and ranged. It's a ridiculous, stupid, difficult thing that we wanted to do, and I think we've got it going on. So one of the first characters we wanted to do that, we wanted to take that idea and mix it and also come up with like a poster child character for the Generate faction. And so in a meeting it was the meeting where we did the first grid of characters, we came up with these keywords for what would eventually come Wrath.
We have college degrees.
So for a long time before we had the name Wrath, we called this dude Laser Katana Samurai Vampire because we wanted those elements, in the character all together. And we gave Scott was like, I love this. You heard him say, I love this faction. I love this character. I'm going to go doodle something. So when our art director goes and doodles, he does something that ends up like that. That's the final character. But here's Scott's original just afternoon doodle on Wrath. So you can see lasers, katanas. You can get the samurai thing. I mean, you got the whole kind of armored skirt and all of that. And then, there's maybe a little vampire in there. He's a little weird. What's really awesome about this is, again, some characters take a lot of concept, a lot of reconcept and all this. This is pretty much Wrath's ability set in the game right now. It was one of the first times I think we visually concepted all this, right?
I know. I haven't actually looked at this photo in I'd say a year. And I'm actually really happy right now because everything on that page is what he does in game, and we actually were able to execute on that. Yeah, I mean, this having this level of art support and having this quality of artwork from my friends is amazing. Okay, as a game designer, I can sit down and the idea just doesn't have to spring forth from me. It can spring forth from Scott and Amanda and Varnell and Aaron and a bunch of other people, and it just. When you see stuff like that, you're like, all right, what do we do? What do we need to do to execute on that code? How do we do a shockwave? Okay, I'm pretty sure we can do the giant, X projectile. Let's just start going. And Effects was killing it. Effects was able to sort of come in there and say, yeah, we can help define, how this is going to look, and it really helped. Cool. This is what Generate looked like. This is what it's going to have all this really sort of red and black angular work to it. And even a year later, I mean, this, I think, was really one of the key starts to that style guide.
Well, it's so strong. I mean, when Scott went from this to really what was the final concept that we started modeling from, I mean, you see it literally is a copy and paste, I think, with a little bit of cleanup on the front-facing Wrath. And then you do the turnaround and the side views and stuff for detail. I mean, any of you guys who do cosplay, you're looking for sheets like this. You've got to know what you look like from the side and from the back and from the top and all of that. But you see there's very little change from that. I mean, this is one of those that kind of stuck right at the beginning.
We added a buster sword.
Yeah.
Katanas weren't enough.
Well, I think one of the things I say as often as possible is you heard my make it weirder, but I say add a sword to it. Anything is always better with a sword, so extra swords.
So if you guys get sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I said, or put a skull on it.
Yeah, those are my two mandates: skulls and swords, and you'll
and
probably
Band-Aids?
like it.
We're not doing Band-Aids this game, are we? We did a lot of
No,
Band-Aids.
I've done enough Band-Aids.
All right. So this is Wrath. If you really see this dude moving, next door when they show some of the Battleborn videos, you can check it out online. You see a lot of featured Wrath, and you really get to see this guy spinning and shooting out the crossblades and all that awesome stuff.
Yeah, going back to what we had mentioned earlier, when you see these characters rigged and animated and moving in game, one of the points during all the characters' developments where like I know that we hit it, like we've actually started to hit the target on that character, is when you just see them in profile, like run by, like you only see them for a couple frames, they're just in a pose going across, and you immediately know what it is. Like when you see Wrath's big attack that he has that makes that shockwave, he grabs that Buster Sword, and he's literally running around with it, screaming, like holding it above himself, running through the battlefield. You see that for 3 frames running across, you get it. You understand what that is. Like, we don't have to explain to you what's going on. He's going to go hit somebody with that. So, like, that is always the part that makes me really, really happy. And it's happened with multiple characters. It happened with Montana when you see him, like, running by and he does the little, like, giddy up run in the middle of the air. We've seen it with
That was the day that Montana started giggling like a schoolgirl. That was when that happened.
Yeah, when you see Marquis, go into his sniper pose, and he's not being, USMC, guidelines for how to hold a sniper rifle. He's putting one arm behind his back and the other like straight out.
He's a
peeking
duelist.
out. And it's like you see that, and you get that perfect angular form on him, and like nailed it, got it.
It goes back to we're making a competitive game, and if you can't understand what you're shooting at, like you need to know the silhouette. You need to understand who that character is, and when we're putting as many characters as we are in the game, you want to know who you're dealing with. So
silhouettes and the form of the characters and all that. Also, one of the innovations we're really proud about, and we've talked about a little bit, is our effects. We're actually frame drawing all the effects. Scott, you want to talk a little bit about Michelle and his work?
yeah, Michelle, who's actually here.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
Right up here.
So,
Hey,
do you
everybody
wanna
give a
stand
shout
up?
out to Michelle
Stand up,
Gagne right
Michelle.
here.
Stand up. Stand up. So, Michelle is one of those guys that you know his work, but you might not know who he is. I mean, he animated everything from classic stuff with Don Bluth to Iron Giant to he works with Pixar. I mean, like this guy is
He's a bad dude.
Yeah. So there was a couple weird mandates I had in this game that I said the art style wouldn't work. I wanted keyframe animation and no mocap at all. I wanted squash and stretch. And to do that, our character models, I think our bones counts went from around 30 to 40 per Borderlands character to a Battleborn character has about 160 bones in his body. And that essentially just means that we can do a lot more distortion, exaggerated in movement. So that was really key to me. 2D and 3D, this game is like a love letter to both of those. So it was kind of weird, but I was like, I really want to have hand-drawn effects in the game, and that's typically what you don't do with a game, these days at all. Nor do you do it with, a AAA title. This seems like something that you might do. And once again, the hats off to the partners for sort of allowing me to take this sort of fighting game approach to this. But we had a connection through Michelle, and of course he had done Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet, and that's his game and his creation, and like the style and the look of his things. So we came to talk to him, and you see things like this. Which we showed a little bit. If you guys were in an art panel we actually showed some loops of the frames going, and just from Michelle to Sung to the rest of the effects department in our company, we were able to just these effects. And once again, I was talked about Ryu's fireball, like when Oscar Mike's explosion goes off, or one of the other characters, like who did that, and there's kind of a way to navigate the madness almost of the game if you're playing from the campaign or if you're playing on the competitive side. Like even if a character's not on screen and they do something, you know that they're there. And a lot of that goes back to Michelle, and it goes back to the years and years of mastery of his talent. And it's just, it's one of those things that's very humbling to work with him, and just that once again that I'm actually allowed to even do that. so it's just, this game to me is a love letter to 2D and 3D animation, and I want that perfect fusion of the two. So
we really, you guys have kind of looked in depth in kind of our concept and style process, and a little bit in the mind of Scott Kester over here. So I'm really proud to work with on this project. Really, kind of what you saw here in the beginning steps kind of formalized some of our process of, when you make a character, you need to think also about how the character plays, how he looks, what are some of his abilities and all. And, it creates some great moments. We have a lot of concept artists. We have one, Eric Dozier, who literally opens up every day just doing a quick sketch, trying to stretch his imagination. And we come up with great stuff like this.
Yeah, yeah. And the way that
You want that in the game?
Tweet Duval Magic.
And the way that happened was basically it was an email thread where I said something like, "We need a neurotic, desk-bound writer in this game, haha." And the next day, Dosher has this in the Daily Pop thread, and I'm like, "Fabulous, new Twitter icon, great." So when we said yes, and look for that. Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit. So, most of what we wanted to do today is give you guys an insight into the amount of love and the amount of effort we're putting into the style and the play of the characters. We've got a lot more characters to talk about. You've seen two, so really quick, here's kind of a breakdown of our faction. That's Montana, by the way, up there with I don't know what you.
Not
how
to
would,
scale.
Yeah, how would you? Yeah, not to scale. A Wrath with the Generate over there. Montana, one of the Peacekeepers, kind of our greatest generation, save everybody kind of faction. The Rogues, Reyna. The Eldred, Thorn, our elfin archer over there. The LLC with Marquis. We've got more characters in every faction. Just to really quick, Brian, I'm going to kind of thumb through these real quick. If you want to say you or Scott or Amanda want to chime in on a couple of notes.
Yeah, Oscar Mike, I mean, he is our pick-up-and-play first-person shooter player. Like, it started with, all right, FPS tropes. Where are we starting at? All right, he's guns, grenades, explosions, assault rifles. Like, he's here to come in, shoot you in the head, drop a grenade at your feet, and run off. And I think that's literally his entire skill set.
Super fun.
While he does it,
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good picture of all. We have three different archetypes. We're really thinking about characters, not just melee and range and shooter and all that, but we also are thinking about kind of and tactically, how do you play as a team? So we definitely have characters that lean offensive. We have characters that lean defensively, and then we have support characters, kind of the holy triumvirate in there, right? And we want to be sure that all of those roles have some play in our game. So when you talk about Oscar Mike, a really good kind of mix of offensive support, but we have some really offensive characters. Thorn.
Yeah. Actually, do you want to go back one slide?
Yes.
So one of the things I like about this is this helps sort of talk about how we like to think about different ways to play characters. There's very much the FPS skill test in the game, but there's also lots of other tests. There's navigational tests. So like Thorn, her trope is it's all about long distance archery combat. But she's also got all this really hyper mobility. She's that trope where you're jumping through the trees, you're making big jumps and sort of landing right at your opponent's face and dropping an arrow and bouncing away. Whereas Wrath is just all about that kill range. Anything that he can get his swords and swinging distance, that is his kill box. And Montana over there is more about crowd control and defense. So, he's up in ice mode. And I like this because it kind of speaks to Montana's gameplay. He likes to pin down his opponents, slow them down, make it easier for him and his teammates to kill it. Wrath's gameplay is just damage output. Above everything else is damage output. And Thorn's gameplay is about that sort of halfway in between where she can damage you, but really she's all about positioning and mobility and that sort of gameplay. So if you're the character, or if you're the player that just likes to jump around in games and bunny hop all the time, we bring that to the table. If you're the character that just wants to be Wolverine, you can do that. You want to be the guy that's sitting at the back and sort of being tactical commander and telling your teammates who you're pinning down or who to finish off. You can have that experience too.
And we've talked a lot about, and as has been remarked on today, this notion of every character in this game being, potentially being the star of its own game or coming from its own IP. We've talked a lot about that in reference to the tropes and the visualization, but that definitely surfaces in regards to gameplay as well. They do feel like completely unique experiences that you could build an entire game around, but they are playing Wrath versus playing Thorn versus playing Marquis. I mean, there is a character in there that will play exactly the way that you want them to. There's going to be a character that is geared just for you.
We had said a lot of times in Borderlands, what's your favorite gun in any shooter? It's in Borderlands, and it's cooler. So that's one of the things too with this is for instance, I love action games, so I want to play a more melee heavy combo driven character. Do you play strategy games? Are you more MOBA centric? Well, then here's a more tactical, as Brian said, and it's such a. I mean, I'd be lying if I said it just wasn't hard as hell. But Borderlands Gearbox has never really backed down from it. If you think of Brothers in Arms, we're gonna take this shooter and a tactical strategy game and put it together. You take Borderlands, there's a shooter, and an RPG and put it together. And this is I don't even know.
It's shooter plus literally everything else.
Yeah, it's like a first-person shooter. It's got MOBA elements in it. It's a role-playing game. It's a fighting game. I mean, but it's just crazy though how at home our developers find a certain character and they almost don't want to play it. I mean, come on, play somebody else. But I'm the same way though. I get used to who I like, and it's just we're building these characters. I mean, we're building them for you guys. We're building them for us, and I just think that I feel like you'll fall in love with these characters just like you did the Borderlands ones, if not more, because I actually feel like there's a little bit. We're just putting that, like what we've learned over the course of Borderlands, we've just put into this.
So here's a cool thing too, and this is just going to be the smallest of teases, but if you don't like the default way the character plays, one of the principal design attributes of Battleborn is you can tweak the character. You can change its abilities. You can change the abilities during the course of a single scenario, of a single play session. In fact, Montana, we have this thing called the Helix. As you're playing, you're leveling up in a scenario. Every time you level up, every time you start either a competitive multiplayer or a cooperative match, you start at level 1. You level to level 10. You gain experience. You're doing all that, and you get to make choices. You get to choose between 2 abilities every time you level. And it really lets you customize and adapt to the particular challenges in a cooperative boss fight, what the other team is doing, competitive or all that. So Montana's a good example of this. He actually can go a little bit more damagey or a little bit more kind of tanky, control-y, talk gamer parlance, right? Here's his a level 4 choice called Firestorm. And if he takes Firestorm, it changes one of his abilities, which is normally called Hailstorm, which fires cold bullets. And it actually goes all the way through, not just in the gameplay, but the way he looks. I love this shot, because you get to see Montana really looking different when those abilities are active. Now, take this and imagine it across every character that we create in the game, and you start to understand why we're spending so much time really visualizing and thinking about these characters.
Thanks, production.
100 man weeks.
We need to make this absolutely clear.
Yeah.
Write that down.
A lot of love, and literally every department at Gearbox. We work as a studio, we work as a team, we love to work together. Everybody brings great ideas to the table, and we've watched these. We've got in fact, if you're a Gearboxer here today, just give a wave here. We got a lot of Gearbox people here.
Yeah.
Hi guys.
Give these guys a shout out. Most of the people who just raised their hand have worked on these characters in some capacity. We've got a lot more dudes still back at the studio while we're up here having fun talking about the game to you guys that are still working on this, trying to be sure it's the best possible game we can make. So, a few other characters real quick. I know we're almost out of time, but I just want to drill into your minds. A lot of stuff in this game. So this is Miko, a mushroom with throwing knives.
I believe the phrase we landed on was combat botanist.
Combat botanist. Yep.
Trademark.
Yeah, that's right.
So what's awesome about Miko? Miko is how many of you played Medic in TF2? Right? All right, shout out. I'm getting older, and my son who's sitting up in front tears me up at competitive shooter games now. And so I find myself really liking the roles where I can find someone who's really good and I can make them better. And Miko is that character for you. It's a healer, still has the ability to shell out some damage and all of that. But if you're like the medic in TF2, or you like playing a priest or a support class in World of Warcraft, one of those games, or you like specking out, who was it in Borderlands 2? Maya. You could play where you not only bubbled up the enemies, but you could get some healing synergy going on and stuff like that. If that's you, Miko is one of those types of support characters where it does that, pure healing. But Miko's, we didn't stop there. I'm sorry, I'm moving through a little bit quickly here. Miko does healing, but Reyna works on shielding. So if you played first-person games, you've got the shields and the overshields and the bubble shields. Reyna does a lot of stuff with that. I'll let Brian and Amanda talk a little bit about Reyna because she's cool.
Yeah, Reyna's one of, I think, one of the favorite characters at the office because the number of conversations where I've had with people where they come in and go like, I can't play this character at all. They're terrible. I went 0-12 in this last game. And then I literally go to the next person's office and they're like, Reyna's the best character in the game. I went 30-2 that round.
You're doing it wrong.
So like, it's the support character for people that really, really love strong support characters. She's the most irritating person you're going to find in the game. Because right when you've gotten that other person down to like 5 health and you just got to put one more bullet, she literally just runs by, drops a shield on that person, and runs off. You're like, so close.
And installs Java, apparently.
Brought to you by Java. But yeah, Reyna was another idea that like the art team absolutely killed it, and it was one of those things where it's just like like what kind of tropes did we love about this, and like the power glove and the laser gun.
Yeah, Reyna was the first character I designed at Gearbox, actually, and he pitched it to me as, she's a support character that heals, but I just want you to make the most badass support chick ever. Like, the biggest hard ass, chick ever who's just, like really, really tough and grounded.
I'm tired of like frail little skinny
Yeah.
like naked girls. You
Yeah.
know that. I was like, put some meat on her and make her a badass.
So she's actually the commander of the rogue faction in our fiction, our backstory. Reyna is a badass. And I love, Brian and Scott and Amanda have all talked about it, but she's a badass in every way you can be a badass. She's cool, she's awesome, she's confident, she leads a faction narratively. But gameplay-wise, we got some of our better players gravitate to Reyna because she just kicks ass in the game right
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like, we wanted support characters to be like, sometimes you play support characters and like, well, I guess I'm just healing you for 45 minutes and I'm not going to do anything else. And it's just like, that's not fun. Like, we love the moment-to-moment FPS test. So you can't just have a healer that just sits there and passively does something. Like, you want her to have that gun. You want her to be a viable threat in the middle of the battlefield. Like, everybody is a viable threat. Everybody can kill each other. You're never going to run into those scenarios where it's like, well, that guy has 10 times the health that I do. Like, every fight is a fair fight. It's just what you do to each other is different.
And
so it's rock, paper, scissors, shotgun, nuclear bomb.
And with the going back to the Helix stuff, like we recently had an in-house tournament, and it's crazy watching this game played at a high level, and we have some really incredible players. But one of the best things is like that your expectations of what a character can do, you have to really be watching and be paying attention to what sort of choices they're making and what they're going after, because the build that you can come up with those two mutually exclusive choices can really, really, really fundamentally change the way a character works, and Reyna's definitely one of them. Like, so you've really got to stay on your toes around her.
We had this awesome moment I saw in the tournament. In fact, I'll tell. So Oscar Mike, you saw the soldier at the beginning. His big move is an airstrike. He literally blankets an area and explosions. And we saw this great moment in tournament where a team went in to take a goal, and Oscar Mike started blanking that. And right on top of an opposing team that had a Reyna and a couple other characters with it. Reyna's a big move is a move where she holds up that power glove and creates a shield bubble around the entire team. And literally the moment that airstrike started coming down from Oscar Mike, the Reyna went up, and she's standing up here. And you got to understand, she's about a third of Montana's height, right? So she's shooting up this bubble,
She's like
Montana's
5 feet
like ducking under it, and other characters are getting in there.
And all you see are just explosions everywhere because the shield is taking half of them, and like everybody's just trying to scramble to stay alive.
Yeah.
And then you watch that shield come down at the last second, and there's a Reyna and
Unscathed.
Montana, like unscathed in the middle of the fight. And then the other team, like you can just feel it. They're just gonna get steamrolled right afterwards.
Yeah.
So just real quick, I'm going to flip through a couple of others to see them. I think we're almost out of time, but there'll be a lot more on these later. Phoebe, we call her the Mage Blade. She's in the LLC faction with Marquis. Again, a mix of kind of melee and range and magic. She teleports around a little bit, but really just another awesome kind of adventure character here.
Yeah. This was another one to play against trope, because again, going back to Scott, it's like, we don't want weak female protagonists. We want strong females. And, she can have a Victorian dress, and that's totally okay, because she's also one of the tanks in the game. Like, she can tank a ton of damage. And it's just watching players just get frustrated at that moment. Like, why can't I kill the small girl? And then she just stabs you right in the face. And you're like, So.
And Scott, how do you feel about Gundam in anime?
The two things that I said that fueled me in my entire life are anime and graffiti. It's kind of a weird combo, but like Mecha and me are friends.
So we made this guy. Caldarius is kind of a jetpack Gundam, and he's all about kind of hit and run.
Yeah, and
I die mercilessly to that moment.
this was one of those characters that, like, I think we prototyped this like day 2. Like, this has been one of the oldest things that we wanted to do. It's just like, okay, we got to make flight work, we got to make like Gundam Dash work, we got to make, it's all these absurd things, and like Code's like, all right, we can do that. And
thank you,
Animation's just
Code.
like, oh yeah, we want to aggressively do that, and like, God bless our riggers and our modelers and our animation team and our effects team, because there was kind of a lot of nebulous, like, we think we can do this, and then like one day it was assembled and animated and moving, and you're seeing this dude doing all the sort of Gundam strafing, dropping, things with, huge emissive lines flying behind it, and just
wiping the floor with every
I know, and
single
you're
ray.
like, I'm
killing
not
me
even
like
mad
every
that
day,
that dude is
yeah.
flying above me and killing me, because that was just so cool.
yeah.
Next round I want to play as that guy.
Yeah. All of a sudden,
We've got a guy at Gearbox, Kevin.
KMS, are you here?
KMS, are you
is he
in here?
This is it's
screw
the,
that guy.
He's terrible
the-
at this
Yeah,
guy.
He's awful.
this is the first
terrible.
recorded Battleborn troll player. He is amazing at Caldarius, And if you get into game with him, it's like, K-Bass! You could hear it down the hall at Gearbox. I hate him because he's really good. But
That's actually one of the things that I love most about our game is that when we play it, when we do our like daily play tests and such, you hear screaming. You hear screaming from down the hall, especially when KMS plays. A couple of our other players. Who's our best Thorn player?
well, Brian's. Oh, we had a Mark. A guy has a lot of A's in his Mark name.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. No, we have a couple of Thorn players on our team that every time I see them, I just run the other way. Like it's and oh my God, it's so infuriating. But it's so great when you have those matches where you can hear everybody in the match, whether they're winning or losing, just shouting at each other because they're so deeply engaged with it. And it's all like you have these awesome just what's the word I'm looking for? Very close like turnaround moments where it's just like the screaming is really good. Screaming's great. You can tell that people actually care when they're just like, no. It's awesome.
That's his normal tone of voice, though. You should hear him when he screams.
Yeah, much like Clinton.
All right, so I think I'm getting the touch on the shoulder. We're almost out of time. These are the 9 characters we've talked about so far, the graphics. We kind of went through all these today. And like I said, we're going to make a lot more, right? We've announced these 9. Stay tuned. I don't know how many yet. Well, we haven't talked about that.
A lot.
But
You're not allowed to say yet.
More than 9.
Maybe that-ish.
Yeah.
Right. This is not the number, by the way. We're still working that out.
Yeah.
And if you guys want a lot of characters, what you need to do after the conference today, you need to go up to Chris Brock, the producer right there, and say, Chris, I want more characters. Can you make it happen? And so that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's the guy to talk to right there.
Just bring money, and it'll all work out. Yeah.
All right. Well, any final remarks from you guys before we let these guys out?
I don't know. I think Randy said it really great this morning if you guys were in the main panel, and that, this really is the next chapter in what Gearbox is doing. And, having you guys here to hear us talk about this I mean, it really does mean a lot to us. And, like, all of the things and all of the love that we put in the Borderlands series, like, so many of those same people are the same people at the helm in this game. And, thank you for supporting the weird art styles that we've kind of done and continue to do. And I mean, this game to me, and I can say this with complete, like, I'm not just giving you some, like, the marketing guy's not in my ear. I think this is the most fun game we've ever made, and I made both of the first 2. I made Borderlands 1 and 2. So I really feel like that this is, like, it's just us entering a new era in what we're doing. I hope you guys really enjoy it.
Okay, thank you everybody for coming out. In this room, I'll get a high five too. In this room, right after this, at 3:15 is the Homeworld panel, and Borderlands at 5. I would strongly recommend coming to both. Thank you guys for coming out.
Thanks.